Hi, I'm Roy Collin, the host of the podcast. You can find everything about me by scanning the QR code there or going to roycollin.com, and you'll find my 6 podcasts: the Podfather, helping people become podcasters; the Awakening, exposing fraud and corruption but with solutions; the Crypto, all things blockchain technology; meditation podcast, speaking podcast, and the Learn Polish podcast. You can also help the show by actually making a donation, visiting the store, or helping my sponsors. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. My guest today, previously on about 2 years ago, was episode number 67. We had a fantastic conversation. She's an internationally renowned author, healer, and expert in the fields of essential oils and vibrational medicine, teacher and speaker, founder of the Soul Institute. Please welcome Adora Winquist. Did I do the surname justice?
So kind. Thank you, Roy. It's a delight to be here with you to commune, to converse, to connect, and share the magic, the potency of alchemy, of meditation, tapping into the infinite potential that is within you.
Excellent. And I mean, we had a very good conversation the last time, so I don't want to kind of repeat on stuff that we've done because people can go back and listen to that. But one of the things is, how do I know I'm a modern alchemist? And I've seen you kind of write about that. And I think, because with what's going on in the world, I think that's a relevant question to start off with.
It really, really is. And I think that the question should come with a little bit of levity, because many of us, most of us, are feeling a great sense of heaviness right now. And the more lightness, the more levity that we can bring into our everyday conversations, as well as our profound, introspective self-discovery, the more that we pave a new pathway of liberation for ourselves. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself in a very light manner. Are you drawn to crystals, aromatics, sacred symbols, sacred geometry, or sigils? Are you drawn to the elements and the natural world? So that's a great question to start with. The second question I would offer is, do you believe that there is more to life than meets the eye, both within your life personally and within the world around you? So that's the second question. And I think if I was going to pick just 3 questions, the third one would be, do you believe that you have a purpose, that there's a deeper meaning to your life, but you may not be sure exactly what it is? Maybe you've had a glimpse here or there, or perhaps you have an idea, you have a knowing, but you may not be sure how to cultivate that and co-create that on an everyday basis. So those are, I would say, the top 3 questions to ask yourself. How do you know if you're a modern alchemist? And, the idea of alchemy is really so intriguing, because if we research the historical curiosity, as well as much of the misconception, as well as the mystery around alchemy, we can see that it's so much more than was initially presented, right? About transmuting base metals like lead into gold. Because really it is about going within and transmuting those places within you that may seem like leaden, right? In certain moments, heavy, arduous, right? Those places of challenge, adversity that we all have. And being able to discover the gold that is within you, right? And that is really the quest of the modern alchemist.
I suppose when people are doing the research, so they want a kind of double-ended question here is because there's so much stuff that's been modified and it's very hard to find. So I'd like to know your own journey as well. Because, obviously, when you kind of got into this, how the whole lot began. But you've probably seen things, because what I've learned just with kind of the exposing stuff and everything, that you'll see different stories, and eventually you'll be able to put things together and you kind of decipher the truth. And it's very hard to do, to be honest. It's not as if like, yeah, this book is ideal.
I love that you're bringing up this point, because there is so much truth and power within it. And so also, if we look, and I'll kind of match some of my story to this, but when we look at the history of things like alchemy or even mystery schools, and many of the current philosophies on healing, on personal growth or empowerment, the healing traditions that are out there, what we start to see is that there are fragments of wisdom, ancient wisdom. There are fragments of knowledge. There are even tools that can offer you some degree of transformation, of healing, of awakening in your life. But because they are fragments, it's nothing near what is possible for you during the course of this life. Not having to wait, until your next life for self-mastery or enlightenment, or not having to wait until the end of this life, right? To really garner those golden nuggets of wisdom that you have come here for on your soul's journey through time. And so when we start to look at this, we start to understand that there are many reasons why these fragments of spiritual philosophy have been held or carried or put forth in the way that they have. Now, oftentimes it's because much of this divine knowledge and ancient wisdom really had to be held sacred, had to be protected until more of humanity was ready to receive it. And what we often hear is the tipping point. So that's one aspect, but there is another aspect, because we are in this dualistic reality. And the other aspect of that is that much of this wisdom and sacred intelligence has been fragmented in a way to maintain control, to maintain power, to maintain greed in ways that are very distorted from that dualistic perspective. So when I reflect back on my journey, and but it's quite interesting, because really this concept of modern alchemy, or the 5 pillars of modern alchemy, have come from my 30-year journey, a little over 30 years, right? As a seeker, because during my point of awakening, and when I really started to see that if I wanted to experience change in my life, from the great heaviness of emotion, of depression, of anxiety, from many elements of my own early childhood dynamics that held distortion and dissonance and a lot of disharmony, well, I wasn't going to be able to find the interventions that provided sustainable healing through going through the main channels, right, that were out there. And of course, I started with those because I was very sick when I was young, both from bronchitis that I would get twice a year, from allergies, but that I would be sick and down for the count for weeks at a time. But it was really so much more than that, because I just reached a point as a teenager that I couldn't carry the great pain and the emotion and the anger and the grief that I was feeling from experiences in my early childhood. And so chronic anxiety and depression started to emerge, headaches, and, going to different doctors was not providing any true sense of relief. Yes, here's a pharmaceutical and I could feel relief for a moment. And so when I went to California at the age of 18 and I had an experience with a a Northern California shaman, medicine man, for a fall equinox ceremony. It was as if a whole doorway of remembrance opened for me, and connecting with the earth and the plants and the crystals, and many of these unseen energies that are available to us, and kind of really, we have a tremendous opportunity to tap into this connection within and all around us. That started a sequence of synchronicity, of openings for me that really brought me, of course, more deeply into my work, but first through my own healing journey. And when I was about 20, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. And it's a very debilitating, painful disease that affects women through their reproductive and various other organs in the body. And at that point, my doctor, who basically said, hey, this is all in your head, or, you're a woman, so you were born to suffer anyway. But here's another script for pain medicine. And I think that you should get a hysterectomy. And so at this age, between the shock of hearing that and the inner knowing that I was to have 2 children, I had to say no and find a different way, which came through working with the vibrational medicine, which came working through essential oils and herbs, which came through meditation, which came through finding a way back to the feminine creatrix, that divine feminine energy within myself. And so the 5 pillars of modern alchemy that are really the core foundational teachings of the Soul Institute and the focus of the new book coming out in the next couple of months is really where I've been able to take all of these fragments of wisdom, of knowledge, of experience through these past 3 decades, travel to India and to Egypt, and, building the first national aromatherapy brand to focus on the chakras and aura clearing, all of these pieces fitting together to weave a comprehensive system of philosophy, of principles and practices, right? That is modern alchemy, so that instead of those fragmented pieces, well, we can weave together fractals of divine knowledge, of ancient wisdom, that then become magnets for us to call back our own fragments of our soul's light and wisdom, and to return them as fractals within us, right? And then we come back into this beautiful kaleidoscope of color, of knowledge, of empowerment, of wisdom, and of light, to really embody our sacred purpose and our raison d'etre, right? Why we are here.
With Egypt, because I hear so much about Egypt. I planned it a few times, but each time something happened and I never got there. And it's like, I want to go there. I want to know about the energy fields. I want to just see what it feels like there. But what was your experience in Egypt?
It was remarkable. I've been twice. And the first time was really, it was actually for a honeymoon for my first marriage. And it was a wonderful experience of returning to places that I had longed to travel to since I was a child. And while I was there, it was all of these levels of remembrance that were reawakening within me. And this is one of the concepts that we talk about in modern alchemy, is that it activates the remembrance that is held within you from your soul to yourself, right? Your soul's journey through time, but also your cellular consciousness. That is the gateway for your own journey of sacred geometry into your DNA and into your ancestral bloodlines. So there is so much wisdom and knowledge that is held within you. And so when you feel a calling like that, Roy, it's like a magnet, right? You're drawn to it because there is an aspect of your soul that is calling you to return home. Now, I say home because more often than not, when we have a calling like that, it's because there are aspects of our soul that are calling to return for like a recapitulation, to recollect those memories, those fragments of your soul's light and wisdom and memory that have been held there. So through my journey, it was really so remarkable between that trip and then the second trip was maybe a year or two later, and it was a Rosicrucian journey there. Now, the Rosicrucians, I'm sure that you and many of your listeners know, are a very old mystery school organization, fraternity, sorority of those that are called to return to the ancient mysteries through the Rose Cross and study many of these aspects of metaphysics and esoteric philosophy in a way that they become a tangible tool for your own awakening and healing journey. So on that second trip, you know, some of the curated experiences, like being able to go to the Great Pyramid at the time of the full moon, which today is a full moon. So it's a wonderful time for all of your listeners. Even if you're not listening to it today, you can tap into this moment in time through your intention, because time is malleable in that way, right? Through the potency, the alchemy of the present moment. But through the time of the full moon and the spring equinox, about 20 some years ago, we had an entrance to the pyramid. They closed it, except for our group. So we got to have meditation in the Queen's Chamber by candlelight. And then ceremony of toning in the King's Chamber where the great sarcophagus is. And after that, it was such a powerful experience for me of remembering being, and not just in this land, but in many of these temples, but when they had a different form, formed more in their perfection. And I came out and I just had these tears streaming. And one of the women who was the organizer with the tour company said, that's where I know you from. She said, I remember we were here in a much earlier time, and it was for a rite of initiation, because the pyramid is not just a storehouse of knowledge, but was used for many rites of ancient initiation into the mysteries. And she said it was the last level of this initiation, which required a dematerialization in one chamber, and then a rematerialization in another chamber. And at the very end, the fear overtook you and you decided not to go through with it. And she said, I want to let you know that you deeply regretted that in that life. And I want to tell you now to step into the void and trust. And it was such a powerful, I remember like my body really moving through these shaking, like convulsions of not just remembrance, but letting this energy unwind through my cellular expressions. And I went back at that time I was living on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and I was still working in my corporate job, but had started my first healing practice and aromatherapy business. And I went home and I stepped into the void and trusted. I gave my notice at the corporate job, without the, financial means to really have the pathway. And, it was a remarkable time, but there were many experiences in Egypt that, you can feel kind of similar to India, where the vibration, the potency of the spiritual frequency is tangible, right? You can feel it coming up through the earth, almost as if there are many areas where there's actually like color, a pigment that comes up that was used in many of the beautiful stories that were depicted through hieroglyphs and art in many of the chambers.
Well, beautiful. So, like you mentioned, your kids, is this something that you're trying to get them involved? Because a lot of people, it's a hard one to navigate, because sometimes people, they want their kids to, get into meditation, get into all you're doing, and others it's just like, you just lead by example and they follow you when they're ready. And I'm just curious, your kind of how it's going with your children.
Well, it's so true. I would say I have two daughters. One is going to be 15 next month, and the other one is 10. And they're very spirited and very willful, much like I was when I was younger. And I would say that just like most of us, we, regardless of our age, we really don't like to be told what to do, right? It often activates our inner rebel. And with both of my girls, they really long to find their own way. And even, my 15-year-old, she will use oils sparingly. My 10-year-old is much more open to the oils, but for the meditation, it's not as accessible for her yet. But here's what I noticed, that when you lead by example, you are teaching through a harmonic resonance, right? You are teaching not just through what you say, not just what you do, but the energetic configuration that is transmitted through you. And because of that, they receive it, even when they don't necessarily think they are, or when they don't necessarily want to. And so what I'll notice more often is they will pull out one of the practices, whether it's a prayer or a breath or an oil when they really need it, or to share it with one of their friends, especially when they think I'm not looking. And I think that this is also a really important foundational element or philosophy of modern alchemy, is that the practices themselves need not be overly complex or timely, right? You don't have to go to a cave in the Himalayas and spend, 10 years to rise in the levels of your consciousness and your path of self-mastery. No, it's more about simple, accessible practices that are still effective and profound, but more consistently. Because when we don't have the consistency of practice, our human nature, we are habitual creatures. We like what is known and what is comfortable. So I think with the children, teaching by example consistently is where you're really helping to sculpt the individuals and the whole array of the tools of a modern alchemist when they're ready to use them and call upon them. And they might not even realize that they're doing that in the moment, but it's just such a natural and organic progression of their own evolution, if that makes sense, Roy.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And I suppose with children as well, because there's a lot of parents, but it happens always. We're bombarded with EMS, all the frequencies and everything. And I mean, I'm constantly trying to see ways of reducing Shanghai. I got Shanghai recently, and I've got the device, and I was like shocked. I was showing my son because I put it on my phone as well, and I was like, because you can even check in the wall where the electricity is, and it just stopped. And I was like, this really works. And just with the crystals and stuff like that, because I think we do need to protect ourselves, because unfortunately, you don't see it. And I suppose just for those that wouldn't be aware, I mean, I've spoke to like military experts, and they were saying how like the eggs are damaged. I wasn't aware of that, like, but when a woman is born, like they've got the eggs, and if they're damaged, they can't be repaired. And then the next generation. So like, and unfortunately, like there's women, they're pregnant, and they're just sitting there, they have their phone on their belly and everything. And it's like, we need to be conscious of the dangers that are out there, because unfortunately the government isn't protecting us. I mean, I was ill when I was sick as well, and it was the same thing. You go in there, write the prescription before you even tell them what's wrong with you. Antibiotics, and when you learn later. But with the crystals and stuff like that, or just how to protect ourselves, what's your advice on that?
Yeah, and so this is so important. So I'm going to just highlight the 5 pillars of modern alchemy and tell you how very simply you can bring some of these into your daily practice to increase what I like to call your force field of light. Because it is so important, because we don't realize how we're being affected until we're fatigued or feeling disconnected or depressed or anxious, and the whole litany goes on. So the 5 pillars are essential oils, crystals, meditation, practical alchemy, which is everything from sound healing, sacred geometry, Akashic record alchemy, and then creating, of course, your own formulation. So it's more of an amalgamation. And then the most important pillar, which is the frequency of love. So how would you pull from these 5 pillars to create more of a sanctuary of high vibrational frequency that not only honors you and your family, but helps you to continue to elevate your energy, your connection, right? Where you can really hear that voice of wisdom and truth within you, because your soul is encoded with a holy power, right? There are sacred elements that exist within you, within your cellular structures, within your energy field, within your brain, within your pineal gland, that can help you to co-create a life beyond limitation, even with many of these challenges that we face, whether it's EMF or stress, chronic or acute stress, and virus, etc. The list again goes on. So crystals, like you mentioned, shungite is an excellent one to have around your computers and routers. Crystals like selenite, black tourmaline are also excellent. And whether it's black tourmaline or shungite, having these not only around your computers or routers, modems, but also having some placed in kind of the 4 corners of your house is very helpful as well, because you want to be able to set up a grid. And the grids become powerful, right? Just like we know that there is power within numbers, right? With us from our humanity, that there is a potency, a momentum that is created of energy, of consciousness, of love, of strength that comes in numbers. Well, the crystals are very similar in that way. So your crystals help to create that strength and protection. Sound frequency, right? So when you can tap into solfeggio frequencies, or even like a 432, which is a classical solfeggio, but it helps to lift the vibration in your home. So even if you're not in a meditation, but you have that frequency, or maybe even a 528, which is wonderful, in your environment, well, that is continually holding that higher vibrational pattern. of energy in your space. And this is so important because we know that everything is energy, right? Everything is energy at certain degrees of vibration, right? Oscillating at specific frequency. So the sound and having the sound or even mantras in your environment or office is going to help to maintain the frequency that is desirable, that is harmonious for you to tap into that voice of wisdom and that holy power that exists within you. So your aromatics are also a really, really powerful way to not only clear the energy, but to strengthen your auric field and to strengthen the frequency in your home. Now, around the 2019, 2020, I created a formula called Viral Warrior to enhance your force field, right? Your energetic force field, which is, of course, not just from an immunity perspective physically, but also from a spiritual perspective, from an emotional perspective, because we want to honor and protect our joy, our vitality, right? The harmony that we work so diligently to co-create within us and in our sanctuaries, in our homes, our families, and our offices. So there are some wonderful formulas on the website. In fact, one similar, if you want to make your own medicine that has cinnamon and clove and ginger and some other oils that you can then infuse with your intention, because the oils are incredibly malleable to frequency. And, one of the progressions of my work with the oils over the past 30 years is downloading frequency into them through what I call the technology of spiritual science. But this is something for everyone to know, that they can infuse their intention into the oils and then create their own medicine for themselves, their loved ones, their family, and their environment to really help to maintain the higher energetic pattern, which is so key for us being able to access that greater potential and empowerment that is held within us. And so this is just kind of a sampling of some of the aspects of modern alchemy and so many of the resources that you can find on the website to help create that high vibrational pattern around you always. Not just if you're at home or at the office, but as you go into the world and you're holding that place of high frequency through your energy field.
Well, excellent. And, with the sound frequencies, I had meditations with the different frequencies that you did, going from 30 minutes to 2 hours. And then Spotify started blocking them, refusing. Yeah, they wouldn't allow me to put them up. And I was like, I'd appeal. And then they might let me, but then they just stopped blocking. And it's like, it's happened with a load of stuff, on the YouTube with different things as well, information I put out. And like, I don't know, have you experienced any of that, or you protected when? Because I know from a lot of people that are doing natural stuff, their websites and everything, and I don't fear it, because even when my YouTube was taken off, I just kind of went on BitChute and I just used it as a marketing thing. I didn't allow them to have the energy that I get angry over it.
Exactly.
And even my crypto one was disappeared without them even telling me, no strikes written. And it just came back the other day. They said, oh, we've reviewed it and it's back. But I never cared. And I just said, I don't. Whereas a lot of people, they put so much energy into fighting these things. And I think I've learned that from, I suppose, my own journey when I kind of lost everything, is when you have forgiveness, when you have no anger, because it's you that's hurting. You're not hurting them when you're thinking that they're not thinking about you. And I think that's the secret to life, is that just inner peace. You work on yourself.
Well, I think that Gandhi said it so clearly many, many years ago. And of course, there's, to paraphrase that, if we want to see any kind of change in the world around us, it starts within, right? Because we are the macro, right? The micro of the macro. right? And so the microcosm has a direct effect on the macrocosm. And we know that because everything is energy, everything can be modulated. But our feeling in this reality is the joy juice of co-creation, right? It is our feeling about things that, of course, stems from our belief system, that stems from our thoughts, that stems from our experiences, but it is our feeling that is paving the way for our experiences in the next moment, in the next moment, in the next moment. So when, how can you best control someone? You can control people when you separate them and when you trigger places of fear and anger, right? And when there is an emotional response, right? Like when something happens, like you just mentioned, I know that in that moment I have a choice. The choice is that I can either react from a place of anger or fear, which then is fuel for that fire of distortion, which is fuel for that energy that carries a very low vibration. And the moment that I go into that place, my whole frequency drops. And so I'm not just getting outraged or angry, but I'm also letting myself step into a place of disempowerment. So, and this is a great, I think we have maybe just a couple of minutes that I can share a practice with your listeners. Because we really want to become masters of our emotions, right? That is the idea of walking this path of self-mastery, of the quest, right? Of the path of the modern alchemist, is that you are learning how to harness the power that exists within you and all around you to sculpt a new reality that is far more harmonious, that is aligned with your heart and your soul, right? That has meaning, passion, purpose, depth, fulfillment. So in the moment, we know that we all have trigger points. So this is what I call the love code breath technique. It is a breathwork practice for the modern alchemist. And we do have this on YouTube and I think on Instagram as well. And so it's 3 simple breaths: release, forgiveness, and gratitude. Now, of course, I recommend pairing this with an essential oil at minimum to start to entrain yourself. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. So the 3 breaths, release, forgiveness, and gratitude. We also have formulations on our website for those of you that want a pret-a-porter, ready to use, ready to wear, aromatic, but you could use any one that you feel called to as long as it's pure. So the first breath of release, and you would have your essential oil, put it here, you could roll it on if it's diluted, and breathe it in. And the reason that we do that is because of the powerful connection between olfaction and the brain, but specifically the limbic center in the amygdala that regulates so much of our mood, memory, and emotion. And because the essential oils are like us, right, both biochemical and alchemical, this becomes a way that we can retrain our future emotional reaction, creating greater resilience, creating greater intelligence, and maintaining a higher vibrational frequency. So in that way, you would breathe it in, and in the moment that you get triggered, whether it's, you get an email or you look at your bank account or something's happening in your relationship or with your health, or God, why did I say that? Or why didn't I say that? What you'll do is say, okay, I'm going to let go of these emotions, because we know what happens when we hold on to the emotion. It creates tension in the body. And then a whole biochemical chain reaction, right? Where we get activated often in fight or flight or feelings of anxiety or depression. So in that first breath is just a decision. I'm going to let go of this emotion. I'm just going to let go of whatever is not serving me in this moment. So it's a deep breath in. We can do this together. And on that breath in, you're taking in the new energy in the new moment, right? You're bringing that in through the universe. And on the exhalation, you're just, through your intention, letting go. Now, sometimes it might take about 3 breaths, right? So breath in, exhalation, letting go until you feel the release in your body, right? You feel the muscles, like the tension release. And then once you've done that, you feel that release. And the second breath is a breath of forgiveness. Now, it's not a forgiveness of anyone or anything else per se, because that's not something that you can force. But we can forgive ourselves. We can bring the energy of forgiveness into our own beings for, holding ourselves up to these expectations that aren't always realistic, right? By accepting and embracing our humanity. So that breath of forgiveness is breathing in that healing balm of grace. Because when we can bring forgiveness into the body, well, we are opening to receive grace that becomes a tremendous healing balm for our spirit, our soul, our heart, our mind, our self. So just taking a deep breath in, bringing in the energy of forgiveness to yourself and receiving grace. And the idea is that you're letting go to let grace in. And you can feel now how that really brings a deeper sense of peace and relaxation in the body. And then the third breath, gratitude. Gratitude, as we know, is one of the highest frequencies for co-creation. Because when we're in practices consistently of cultivating gratitude and appreciation, well, that attracts more experiences to be thankful for. So that last breath, breathing in gratitude to yourself for your courage and your commitment to better quality of life, greater happiness, joy, vitality. And that last breath of gratitude, maybe 2 or 3, because you just feel how it expands and elevates your energy, your emotion, right? Then suddenly you feel like, yeah, I do have this beautiful force field of gratitude, of light, of presence around me. Can you feel that, Roy?
Absolutely. Yeah. The power of gratitude has always been something that I've worked on, I think, because what you think about and appreciate, you attract.
Beautifully stated.
So just finally, and basically, Adora, I need to have you back because I want to, when you've the book, because I know the book is coming out soon, so we can get a chance to go through that. And like, I'll read the book and then we can go through it in detail. And next time you come back, because I'd love to have you back. But like you do retreats, and I mean, I know the benefit of retreats, but you might let people know what your retreats entail. I believe they're in France.
Let's see. Yes, I do have one coming up, a 10-day journey of the Divine Feminine, a Mary Magdalene pilgrimage, which is incredible because we go to all of these ancient sacred sites associated with the Divine Feminine through Provence and southern France. And I do ceremony every day with the oils and the crystals and the frequency. So it really allows you to come into those places of your own desire, your own divine design, and unlock the inner alchemist within you, but to unlock the wisdom, the empowerment, the divine truth and light, and those unique gifts that reside within you, right? That quintessence, that gold. So then you can map a way forward in your life to live from that place each and every day. I also have 2 programs in August, one at the beautiful Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and one at also the gorgeous Kripalu a yoga center in Lenox, Massachusetts. And those will also include the elements of modern alchemy in these somatic and alchemical practices to allow us to open up and peel back those layers of heaviness that we carry to get to that gold within, and then to embody that, right? Through working with the oils and the crystals and the meditation and the sound, and coming into new receptivity to live, to love, and to lead from your sacred human heart, which is the source of all creation and really the true source of sacred leadership in your life.
As always, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Adora. You might let people know where they can find you.
Yes, thank you. And I would be delighted to come back again, Roy. You can find us at thesoulinstitute.co, and of course on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook at Adora Winquist. And I look forward to having you join our community too. We have a Facebook group, Modern Alchemy with Adora Winquist, that you're welcome to join. That is inspiration and alchemical insight to curate your journey of self-mastery, your quest as a modern alchemist.
I'll make sure I put all the links both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Adora.
Thank you so much. Blessings.
That's all for the meditation podcast. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and also comment. Even if you don't agree with everything, just make a comment. Just don't be abusive. I leave all comments up. And until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you can find my 6 podcasts on roycollin.com or scan the QR code if you're looking to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, help with that. Also, if you're looking for a virtual assistant, we also have that service. And you can help the show by visiting the store, supporting our sponsors, or making a donation. Until next week, take care.